August 5th, Municipality of Anchorage Platting Board Authority will come to order. And we have roll call.
Mr. Fuller?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Present.
Mr. Edmondson?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Ms. Enix? Here. Mr. Abel, Mr. Porter, and Mr. Cross have been excused. Thank you.
And may we have a quorum result announced? Yes. And it is a short board. And when there is a short board, 5-member board of the Commission, a postponement is offered to and agreed to by the petitioner that will be moved to the next regular agenda. This should occur within 30 days, which does not require renoticing the case, new public noticing, or advertising. If the petitioner is willing to postpone but unable to attend the next available meeting within 30 days, the petitioner has a one-time only option to choose the next date, certain that they can attend at no extra fee. When a postponement is requested by the petitioner, there is a rescheduling fee, and a new public hearing date shall be determined by the Planning Division. This will put their case in the next available cutoff date queue as if they were submitting their case for the first time. When the board has 5 members, it requires a unanimous vote of 5 members in order to approve any action. Are there any agenda changes? Yes, can you hear me now? Okay. At this time, I would like to call each of the petitioners up and inquire as to whether they would like to seek a postponement due to the short board. McKinley Landscaping Subdivision, case S12188. Is there anyone here on that matter? Oh, sorry. Checkpoint Subdivision, Spinell Homes, case S12162. Is there anyone here on that matter?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Jeff Gastaldi.
We're only asking right now about whether or not you want to postpone because of the short board.
No.
Okay. We'll call you back up later. Thank you. Case S12186, the Villages Subdivision. On that matter,
No, we don't want to postpone either.
Okay. And case S12187, Grandeur Subdivision. Is there anyone present on that one? Case S12193, Benito Subdivision.
Hey there. Hey, we want to go forth.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have the action summary from Wednesday, July 1st, 2015. And we have a motion to approve the action summary. Dan Young has moved and Trevor Edmondson has seconded. Are there any corrections to the action summary? Objections? Seeing no objections, the action. Yes. The motion passes. Next, we have a number of minutes. Minutes from July 1st, 2015, April 4th, 2012, May 2nd, 2012, September 5th, 2012, October 3rd, 2012, and November 7th, 2012. Dan Young has moved to approve the minutes, and Ken Fuller has seconded. Dan Young, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, please. I'm going to support my motion. However, there is a correction that I've already noted for November 7th on page number 6. And with that one correction, I will support this motion.
And that's to change the word from apartments to departments.
That's correct.
In the paragraph about board member Kange's notes, the last sentence.
It's yes, it's the second paragraph that starts with board member Kange.
Thank you. Are there any other corrections on any of the minutes? Are there any objection to passing the minutes? In the case, the minutes have been approved. Under special order of business, we have informational items, the abbreviated plat action summaries for June 9th, 29th, 2015, July 20th, 2015, and July 27th, 2015. These are just informational items laid on the table. And at this time, we will take disclosures. Does anyone have any disclosures? Dan Young.
Yes, in the case of S12162, Checkpoint Subdivision Tracks A1 and A2, my firm has ongoing business relations with the petitioner on other matters. We have no involvement in this project. I also have personal specialized knowledge about the subsurface conditions on 2 properties that are adjoining to the subject property. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board tonight. I can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias. My past involvement and personal interest will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case tonight.
Thank you. May I have a motion directing Mr. Young to participate in today's matter, case S12162. Trevor Edmondson has moved and Christina Enix seconded. Mr. Edmondson, would you please speak to your motion?
I move to have Mr. Young participate in the case. As he's disclosed, he has no financial interest in the case before us tonight and can act impartial.
Thank you. Any opposition to Mr. Edmondson's motion to direct Dan Young to participate in case S12162? Seeing none, the motion passes. Dan Young, you're directed to participate tonight in case S12162, Checkpoint Subdivision. Are there any additional disclosures? Thank you. And now we'll turn our attention to the consent agenda. There are 2 items. May we have a motion to approve the 2 items on the consent agenda? Dan Young has moved. Ken Fuller has seconded. Is there any objection to approving the consent agenda? Seeing none, the motion passes. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at its meeting is, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners, including their representatives, have 10 minutes. Part of their time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs will each have 5 minutes. Individuals have 3. When your testimony is complete, you may also be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on an issue unless questioned by the board. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or of any conditions is governed by AMC 2111-304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances pursuant to AMC 2111-503, or an appeal of the board's final decision pursuant to AMC 2130. We will now take up case S12162, Checkpoint Subdivision. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This preliminary plat is a request for subdivision of one tract into 2 tracts of land with vacation of a 50-foot wide public use easement dedicated by instrument number 2005-056723-0 and vacation of a 20-foot wide T&E dedicated by instrument number 2008-0603-19-0. This plat subdivides Tract A, created by Plat 2012-96, and dedicates right-of-way for Whisperwood Park Drive and Newell Street. The petition site is located just south of Boundary Avenue, west of Muldoon Road, and east of Boniface Parkway. Proposed Tract A1 is zoned R4, Multiple Family Residential District, while Tract A2 is zoned R3, Multiple Family Residential District. With regard to road improvements, the petitioner is required to construct Whisperwood Park Drive to municipal standards, consisting of a 36-foot wide paved street, back of curb to back of curb, including type 2 rolled curb and gutter, with a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk constructed on both sides of the street. Petitioner is also required to construct Newell Street from Whisperwood Park Drive to Boundary Avenue to municipal neighborhood collector standards as a 31-foot wide paved street back of curb to back of curb, including type 1 barrier curb and gutter with a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk separated from the back of curb at a distance of 5 feet, constructed on the east side of the street. The petitioner is requesting 2 vacations tonight. The first vacation, a 50-foot wide public use easement, and a vacation of a 20-foot wide T&E. The request for vacation of the T&E is being withdrawn. The request for vacation of the 50-foot PUE has been reviewed and found to conform with municipal vacation policy. The PUE was dedicated by Plat 2012-96 and was intended to provide a secondary access to and from this subdivision. With this platting action, the petitioner is dedicating 40 feet of Newell Street to right-of-way, which will provide the required secondary access from this subdivision. Because secondary access to and from the petition site is being provided with dedication of Newell Street, the 50-foot wide public use easement is excess to municipal need. So with that being said, staff would like to recommend approval of the 50-foot wide public use easement and approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 9 on your staff packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for staff? Seeing none, we will now hear from the petitioner's representative.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Jeff Gastaldi, Gastaldi.
Thank you.
I'm representing the petitioner this evening. I don't have a lot to add to staff's presentation. Just a little background. The developer decided it would be beneficial to subdivide the northern portion of this tract from the southern portion, concentrate on the southern portion for development sooner and the northern portion later. With the dedication of Whisperwood Drive, that creates a natural boundary anyway. The vacation of the PUE is just going to provide for some flexibility regarding the new site plan and unit layout. So I think it's a fairly straightforward platting request. I ask that you, I can answer any questions, but I'd ask that you just approve this petition with the 9 conditions recommended by staff.
Thank you. And you have 8 minutes and 50 seconds for rebuttal.
Good.
Do we have any questions for petitioner's representative? Doesn't appear so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak? Anyone at all that would like to speak on this matter? Would you like to use any of your rebuttal time at this time? Thank you. The matter now rests with the board. Then we have a motion to approve the vacation of the 50-foot wide public use easement. Trevor Edmondson moves. Would you please state your motion?
Case S12162 Checkpoint Subdivision, tracks A1 and A2. I move for the approval of the vacation of the 50-foot wide public use easement dedicated by instrument number 2005-056723-0. Condition of record a suitable plat within 18 months of approval.
Thank you. And Ken Fuller seconds the motion. Mr. Edmondson would like to speak to your motion.
Sure. I'd just like to state that with this platting action, the petitioner is dedicating 40 feet of Newell Street to right-of-way, which will provide the required secondary access from the subdivision. Because secondary access to and from the petition site is provided with dedication of Newell Street, the 50-foot public use easement appears to be in excess of municipal needs.
Thank you. Are there any additional findings that the board would like to add? Seeing none, is there any opposition to the motion? With no opposition, the motion passes. Next, may we have a motion to approve the plat for 18 months? Trevor Edmondson moves. Would you please state your motion?
Mr. Chairman, in case S12162 Checkpoint Subdivision, tracks A1 and A2, I move for approval of the plat for 18 months subject to the following conditions, 1 through 9 on in our staff packet, pages 8, 9, and 10.
Thank you. Is there a second? Dan Young seconds the motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
State I intend to support my motion. Appears that the petitioner has complied with all of what's been requested, or is in agreement with what's been requested by staff and on the agencies that have reviewed this, and just appears to me that that they've met all the conditions that they've been asked for.
Thank you. Any additional findings? Dan Young.
Yes, I too will be supporting this, and I find that there's nobody from the public who has come forth and testify either tonight and verbally or in the record. And the petitioner's representative has stated that their acceptance of these conditions appear to be normal conditions that we approve week after week or month after month, so I'm going to support this.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. We will now take up the matter of case S12186, the Villages subdivision. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This preliminary plat seeks to vacate the 100-foot section line easement that bisects the subject property. The vacation request has been reviewed and found to conform to the municipal vacation policy. The Hillside District Plan identifies the section line easement as part of the proposed primary trail system providing access to Chugach State Park. The Rabbit Creek Community Council provided comments opposing the vacation of this easement, citing the Hillside District Plan. Staff agrees with the Rabbit Creek Community Council comments in part. It is extremely important to retain access to the Chugach State Park and implement the Hillside District Plan. However, the Hillside District Plan recognizes the trail routes identified in map 4.6 are not necessarily the final alignments that will ultimately be constructed. The Hillside District Plan's objective is to identify important trail connections and routes and express the public intent to make trail connections across or around private property for connectivity. Being that the identified proposed primary trail was not necessarily the intended final alignment and simply followed the existing section line easement with no consideration for constructability at this location, staff believes that the section line easement bisecting the subject property is access to the public need only with the dedication of a 25-foot wide public trail easement elsewhere on the property. It is with this dedication that the objectives of the Hillside District Plan are being met, while at the same time not unnecessarily encumbering private property. This 25-foot trail easement will ensure public access now and into the future. The location of the trail easement will need to be resolved with the non-motorized transportation coordinator and planning staff. It should also consider grades and constructability. So with that being said, staff would like to recommend approval of the vacation of the 100-foot section line easement and approval of the plat subject to the conditions listed on pages 6 and 7 of your staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of staff? Well, I do. Is there presently a trail in use in that easement?
Mr. Chairman, no, there is no trail in that easement.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? And we now have petitioner's representative.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Jeff Gastaldi, Gastaldi, and I'm representing the petitioner on this case. Again, I don't have a lot to add to staff's presentation on this case. I would just note a couple of kind of extenuating circumstances. There's an existing 100-foot right-of-way adjacent to this lot right now. The existing road is gravelly, rappy, probably 24 feet wide. So obviously that's a huge corridor. As Mr. Whitfield noted, there is no trail in the easement at the present time, and it really wouldn't go anywhere anyway. This lot's also encumbered by a Chugach transmission line midway down the hill with 75-foot wide right-of-way or easement. So the only buildable area on this property is where the 100-foot section line easement bisects this property. If this vacation is not approved, this lot, nearly 3 acres, will be essentially unusable. When this was platted back in the day, it probably should have been had the section line easement dealt with then, but it didn't seem to be a concern. So again, I would just ask that you approve this vacation per staff's recommendations with the conditions they've noted.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of Mr. Castaldi? Mr. Edmondson.
Mr. Castaldi, through the chair, Mr. Castaldi, do you have a sense of where that trail easement might be located?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Edmondson, I really don't, but I think we're willing to dedicate the easement and work with staff to put it in a logical place. Like I noted, there's a 100-foot corridor existing adjacent to the property now, which would provide roadway, separation, trail, etc., to meet any condition on any road in town. So,
yeah, in addition, it also looks like there's a 50-foot screening easement
correct.
As well. So
yes, which doesn't affect the property in terms of setback because we need a 50-foot front setback anyway. So, but the trail could be in there. It could be, you know, it really wouldn't make any sense to be anywhere but up where the road is anyway, honestly.
and maybe it's a question for staff. Could the trail easement be located within the vegetative buffer?
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, no, the trail could not be located within the vegetative buffer, and I would add that the Hillside District Plan identifies this as a primary trail to connect the Chugach State Park. Mr. Castaldi has mentioned that it would be appropriate to have a trail alongside the road, being as that the road is a 100-foot right-of-way. I don't believe that a trail alongside the road would allow access to Chugach State Park. Therefore, more than likely, this trail would have to be provided on property to provide that access. Thank you.
Through the chair, Mr. Castaldi, maybe I don't recall seeing a topo on this property, but I'm pretty familiar with that area. Mm-hmm. Does the topography of the lot allow, for the construction of a usable trail?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Edmondson, the topography of the lot would allow construction of a trail. I'm just not sure where it would connect on either side.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Ken Fuller.
Yes, I guess this is a question for staff through the chair, please. Are any of these other lots have access to Chugach State Park from the road, or is this the only one that is impacted by this requirement?
Through the chair, Mr. Fuller, the lots directly south of the subject property, also actually directly south and north of the subject property, have this 100-foot section line encumbrance as well. The Hillside District Plan identifies that section line easement as a proposed primary trail route to access to Chugach State Park. So the encumbrance is not only on the subject property, but other neighboring properties.
Well, yeah, I see what's drawn here, but I mean, practically speaking, are they trying to access the park from Villages Parkway? Is that the intent?
Through the chair, Mr. Fuller, I think that when the Hillside District Plan was being written, they saw, or they looked at proposed or possible routes to access Chugach State Park. They identified at a minimum 2 section line easements that could be used to access the park, and they somewhat arbitrarily placed them as placeholders to access the Chugach State Park with no consideration of constructability or topography, things of that sort.
So is this lot then the road, the high point, and it falls away, or is this level, or there's no topography identified on this?
Through the chair, Mr. Fuller, yeah, you don't see topography on the plat. However, the property does slope from the road down to the Chugach State Park.
At what degree of transition?
Through the chair, Mr. Fuller, I'm not sure what the slope is. Perhaps Mr. Gastaldi could provide some insight there.
So you are in some negotiation. He's just asking then for agreement that you will cooperate with some trail at some time in the future. Is that what we're looking at here?
Through the chair, Mr. Fuller, the condition is to dedicate a 25-foot wide trail easement with the exact location to be resolved with staff.
Right. Okay. And your clients are okay with that, Mr. Gastaldi?
Through the chair, Mr. Fuller, yes, they are. You know, I would note that it would probably make sense to dedicate the trail easement along one of the sidelines all the way through, and then it would intersect the section line easement on either the north or the south side of this parcel.
Well, yeah, the way it's currently laid out makes no sense at all. I mean, you have to go through 2 or 3 different lots before you can actually get to the park.
Yes, sir. So it would, I mean, in a practical sense, I hear you, but if we dedicate a trail easement on the sideline, it would intersect the section line easement and then going from the dedicated right-of-way.
Okay, so you're okay with it. Thanks.
Yes, and I think that would resolve the issue.
Anything further? Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now open the floor to the public. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this matter? Anyone at all? Seeing no one, would you like to use any rebuttal time?
Mr. Chairman, I don't guess I probably need to, but I think I'd like to recommend that we try and do the trail easement either on the north or the south side. That would intersect the section line easement, preferably on the south end would be the best, and then because you could come down the road, down the trail easement, and hit the section line easement, and then try and get through the neighbor to the south, which would be at your own risk, I have a hunch.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dave Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to add to what Mr. Gastaldi was just saying. You know, it's staff's intent to, you know, limit the encumbrance upon the property while still fulfilling the goals and intent of the Hillside District Plan. So, you know, while we're requesting that the Platting Board approve this 25-foot dedication of a trail, it is certainly our intent to minimize that encumbrance and make the property developable. So we will work with Mr. Gastaldi to, find the best alignment that allows for a trail, but while at the same time allows for development of the property.
Thank you. May we have a motion to approve the vacation of the 100-foot section line easement? We're closing the public hearing. The matter rests with the board. And Dan Young has made a motion. Would you please state your motion?
Yes. In the case S12186-1, the Villages subdivision, I move for approval of the vacation of the 100-foot section line easement subject to item number 1, dedicating a 25-foot public trail easement on property, the exact location of the easement to be resolved with the non-motorized transportation coordinator and planning staff, and 2, recording a suitable plat.
Thank you. And Ken Fuller seconds the motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. I've read the comments, and I'm sympathetic to the Rabbit Creek Community Council's unanimous consent to oppose this vacation. I'm looking at this, and staff finds that this is in excess of the municipal needs. One of the items that the Rabbit Creek Community Council brought up is the vacation of this easement may constitute an amendment to the hillside plan, but it's not a definite statement. That's just it's just a statement that I don't feel that we should rely on because it's not factual. It could be, but it's not stated in a factual manner. And the trails coordinator, who I would expect to read her comments, did not comment on this case, then there's certainly no opposition from the trails coordinator. I see this as and I love trails. Just don't anybody get me wrong. I've hiked a lot of trails in my life, and most people would never catch up with the number I've hiked. But nonetheless, I see this as still to dedicate 25 feet and to work with staff and resolve this with staff would, to me, resolve the need for a trail here. And so I'm going to support this. And there were no other public, I also found there were no other public comments. This was posted, there's an affidavit of it being posted properly. So I'm going to support my motion.
Thank you. Are there any additional findings? I have a few that I'd like to make. The current code states that if elements of a comprehensive plan conflict, the elements most recently adopted govern. It also states that the establishment of a trail network may change over time, that the most important portions of the trail network is to preserve the connectedness of the trails from one section to another, that the plan is supposed to be providing for the management and increasing the quality of the trails that are networked in the area. And the value of this approach is in creating an integrated connected system of roads and trails. It reduces the development costs and impacts by reserving the most efficient routes for a group of subdivisions. Accordingly, I find that the hillside plan is not with respect to trails, doesn't set those things in stone, and that having some flexibility is actually provided for in the plan. Accordingly, I approve. I'm going to support the motion also. Any other findings? Seeing none, is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. May we have a motion to approve the plat for 18 months? Dan Young moves. Trevor Edmondson seconds. Mr. Young, would you please state your motion?
Yes, in the matter of case S12186-1, the Villages subdivision, I move for approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to the following conditions, and those conditions are number 1, 2, and 3 on pages 6 and 7 in our staff packet.
Thank you. Would you Is there anyone else that would like to speak with respect to the motion? Any additional findings? Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes. We'll now turn our attention to case S12187, Grandeur Subdivision. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The petitioner requests a fourth time extension of the subdivision agreement for Grandeur Subdivision lots 1 through 5. All time extensions shall be conditioned to require the provision of an adequate performance guarantee. And the private development section confirms that the existing performance guarantee is adequate. The petitioner stated that market conditions created the need for this 2-year time extension to the subdivision agreement. The department's recommending approval of this fourth time extension to July 25th, 2017. So on page 2 of your packet, the department recommendation, it says January, but should say July. Staff mistakenly counted 18 months instead of 2 years because it's just a mistake.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? And does the petitioner's representative want to make a presentation? I believe.
Yes, I'm Joe Burnham. I'm the fellow doing the subdivision up there. It's been constrained by market constraints for several years now, and it's finally turned around enough to where we can get it completed. We've got a couple of lots sold in the subdivision, so we'll be able to move ahead with it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioners? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this? Seeing no one, do you want to use any of your rebuttal time? No. Thank you. The matter now rests with the board, and we have closed the public hearing. And we have a motion to approve the time extension. Dan Young moves. Would you please state your motion?
Yes, in the case of S12187-1 Grandeur Subdivision, I move to approve the fourth time extension to July 25th, 2017, and I note in our staff packet that the date says January 25th, but I'm moving to July 25th.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to the motion? And Trevor Edmondson has seconded the motion. Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Next, we'll turn to case S12193, Benito Subdivision. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request to remove Note 2 from Plat 67-44 Benito Subdivision, Block 2, Lot 2. The plat note states building setbacks are 40 feet from streets, 5 feet from side and back lot lines, except that this should be 20 feet from back and side lot lines having utility easements. The property was platted prior to zoning taking effect, and the R1A zoning setbacks are 20-foot front yard, 5-foot side, 10-foot rear. The platted setbacks are more restrictive than the zoning setbacks, and the platted setbacks are really unnecessary now that we have zoning. The Planning Division, along with the reviewing agencies, have no objection to removal of the plat note. The department's recommending approval of the removal of approval of the petitioner's request to remove Note 2 from this this particular lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, may we have petitioner's representative?
Hi, my name's Kelly Kolb. I'm here with my mom, Roberta Kolb.
Okay.
And we just want to add on to that house so that Mom can come live with me and I can help her out. This is a ranch house, rather than sell and buy a new one. So That's all it is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any questions for the petitioner? I don't see any. Is there anyone from the public who would wish to speak on this matter?
My name's Chuck Homan, H-O-M-A-N, and I'm a general contractor, been hired by the Kolbs to build their addition, and ask that you approve the request, and it stays within the character of the subdivision. In my estimation, 20 to 30% of the structures built in the subdivision are built either closer than 40 feet to the street or closer than 20 feet to the side yard easements, and that is evidenced by page 5 that staff submitted to homes directly across the street are less than 40 feet from the street. So doing this maintains the character of the subdivision.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Holman? Thank you. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak from the public? I don't see anyone. Would you like to use any time for rebuttal? Right. And with that, we'll close the public hearing, and the matter now rests with the board. May we have a motion to approve the petitioner's request to remove Note 2? Trevor Edmondson moves. Would you please state your motion?
Mr. Chair, in case S12193, Benito Subdivision, Block 2, Lot 2, I move for the approval to remove Note 2 from Plat 67-44 for Benito Subdivision, Block 2, Lot 2.
Thank you. And would you like to speak to your motion?
Sure. I'd just like to state that that this plat note was put into effect prior to zoning regulations in this area. It's like 1974. Since then, zoning regulations have been adopted by the municipality in this area, and this plat note is more restrictive than the current zoning regulations. And that also like to state that removing the plat note would not create any conflict with current zoning regulations. So I intend to approve I intend to vote for my motion.
Thank you. Any additional findings? I'd like to make a couple of additional findings. One is that I find that there's no opposition from the neighbors that may be subjected to the deed restrictions. Also, that the evidence that's been presented here is compelling that the proposed change on this property will not change the neighborhood, and that other property owners in the area have, in fact, built beyond the plat restrictions, the original deed restrictions. And so this is a matter of being consistent with property usage in those neighborhoods. Dan Young.
I intend to support this motion, and the reasons that I'm going to support are the same reasons that Mr. Edmondson and you announced.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing none, the motion passes. Are there any appearance requests? Are there any additional people to be heard? Any reports or board member comments? Seeing and hearing none, I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn. Trevor Edmondson moves and Christina Nexus seconds. We're now adjourned.